Good evening and welcome to everybody who's listening, whether on Facebook or YouTube, live or later on. Today's topic is there a cure for coronavirus? What does the Talmud say? Obviously, everybody's looking for this cure, but is there a cure? What does the Talmud say? Should we expect a cure? Is there a cure? Well, first we need to make sense of the title. How does that even make sense? Why should we be asking what does the Talmud say? Is the Talmud the place to look for a cure for COVID-19? This virus didn't even exist when the Talmud was compiled. Well, on one level, in addressing such a question, there's a fascinating idea where we find Talmudic concepts, Talmudic teachings, and other ancient Jewish teachings borne out in science centuries later, all the way to today. Let's take a very current and relevant example of that. In Talmud and in Jewish law, we often have a concept of Daled Amos. Daled Amos is an amma, meaning which is a biblical measurement that's usually a cubit. Translated as a cubit, an amma would be 1 cubit, and 4 amos, Daled Amos, 4 of them. Well, those 4 cubits are the personal space of every individual. What does that mean, personal space of every individual? I have Daled Amos, I have 4 cubits of personal space. So as an example, if someone wants to give me something and they throw it in my direction, when does it become mine? Do I need to catch it? I'm terrible at catching things. The baseball, and hopefully also the virus. Do I need to actually catch the object to make it mine? What if it lands on the floor? When is it mine and the giver can no longer retract it? When he throws it, when it's in the air? So the answer is when I catch it, of course, it has now become mine. But also if it lands on the floor next to me, really close by, that would also make it mine. How close is close, though? So somebody threw the object, they wanted to give me the gift, it landed really close by, we say, that's as if it reached me, it's now mine. How close is close? How close is close enough to make it mine? Well, the Talmud says, Daled Amos, 4 cubits. If it's within 4 cubits of where I am located, it actually reached me. It's just as good as reaching me, and it's now mine. Great. Let's use another example. If somebody's punished for certain severe offenses by excommunication, and nobody's allowed to communicate or even approach this individual, again, how close is too close? If we say that Mr. X did something so terrible, he needs to be excommunicated from the community, nobody can talk to them, nobody can communicate with them, nobody can even approach this individual, how close is getting too close to him? Well, the Talmud says, again, not to get within 4 cubits. So the personal space around the person is 4 cubits. 4 cubits is an extension of the individual, him or herself. 4 cubits around me is as if it's part of me. Now, by now, you're probably all wondering, how much is 4 cubits in modern terms? Cubit sounds nice, but how do we measure that in feet, inches, or meters? How much are those 4 cubits? So the accepted measurement, after a lot of wrangling with it, and of course Talmudic debate and discussion, but the accepted measurement and definition for a cubit in modern terms would be 18.9 inches. 18.9, just short of 19 inches. If you multiply that by 4, I won't make you guess, you multiply 18.9 by 4, it's 75.6. Or in other words, 6 feet and just a bit. 4 cubits, the personal space around the person, according to the Talmud, is 4 feet and just a bit more. Now, 1 second, did we really say 4 cubits is 6 feet? The personal space is 6 feet. Isn't everybody talking about 6 feet? Yes, everybody is talking about 6 feet because everybody's trying to keep social distance, of course, to avoid spreading the virus. Well, how close is too close? How much distance is necessary? Well, the CDC says about 6 feet. About 6 feet around me is an extension of me. About 6 feet around the person with the virus would be too close. it would be enough for the virus to spread, unfortunately, to the next person. So stay more than 6 feet away. 6 feet, like the Talmud says, Dalit Amos, 4 cubits. So the Talmud says that the immediate space, the immediate personal extension of a person is the 4 cubits, the 6 feet around him. And guess what? Science in 2020 says the same. The 6 feet around you has the very same impact as you yourself. So maybe, just maybe, Talmudic teachings are not obsolete at all, and actually are relevant, and actually can give us some guidance on our original question on whether we can find a cure for COVID-19, for the coronavirus. And actually, in Hasidic teachings, we encounter very much a Midrashic teaching, which tells us how the Torah is a blueprint for this world. The Torah is a blueprint for the world we live in. Now, what does that mean? But just like in a construction project, you would build it according to a blueprint. The world we live in is designed according to the Torah. So looking within the Torah, we can find answers, we can find insight, we can find new direction for new things that emerge in the world, because again, that universe was originally created by God in the spirit and in the image according to the plan of the Torah. So what does the Talmud say, and what does the Torah say that's possibly relevant to coronavirus, is possibly relevant to our discussion of finding a cure? Well, let's open the Talmud and try to find out. We're going to look at Tractate Megillah. So Tractate Megillah, as its name suggests, is an exposition of the Megillah and a discussion of the laws of Purim. And in the Megillah itself, which of course is the scroll that describes the story of Purim, the story of the holiday we just celebrated last week. And the bad guy, the villain in the story of Purim, of course, is Haman. Haman, or Haman, is the sworn enemy of the Jewish people, and he's the one who plotted, once given the opportunity, to actually exterminate the Jewish people back 2,600 or so years ago in the Persian Empire. Purim, which we celebrated last week, celebrates his downfall and his failure to succeed at that plan, and that we are here to tell the story. So Purim is a celebration of overcoming Haman. And a key point in that story, a key point in the Megillah, Megillat Esther, where we read the story of Purim on Purim, an important moment in that Megillah is when the king promotes Haman as his chief minister, and really the second in command, second only to the king himself, the second most powerful person in the Persian Empire of ancient times. So the Megillah actually describes, and we'll read this in the Talmud, the Megillah says, Achar hadvorim ha'ela, after these things, at that point, Gidal hamelech Achashverosh, the king promoted Haman as his chief minister. So of course the question is, Achar hadvorim ha'ela, after these things, after which things? After what did the king promote Haman? Of course, that means after the story just preceding that in the book. The previous chapter ends with an assassination attempt where two of the king's men actually tried to assassinate him, and Mordechai, the sage, the leader of the Jewish people, who actually plays a key role in the Megillah in saving the Jewish people at that time, Mordechai is the one who uncovers the plot, tips off the king, and saves his life. So right after that comes the point where the king promoted Haman and had him be his chief minister. But we don't usually make that stress. We don't usually emphasize the sequence. And we would just say the story. The rest of the Megillah would just go from chapter 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and on, and just says the story as it is and as it took place. We don't keep stressing that this happened after that and the other thing happened after the other. Why in this particular case are we so intent on making sure everybody knows Achar hadvarim ha'ela, that the promotion of Haman and making this enemy of the Jewish people into such a powerful figure happened right after the failed assassination attempt of the king's life. Well, the Talmud, of course, asks this question. And the Talmud says, and since we might be curious, I'll try to show you the Talmud. And this is how the Talmud looks. And you see the center of the page is the actual text of the Talmud. And the actual text, that's what's compiled by the Talmudic sages between the year 200 or so and the end of the 5th century of the Common Era. So 1500 and up to about 1800 years ago. This is the compilation of the oral law, a compilation of the tradition of the Torah going back all the way to Moses. That's what you have right here in the center in the text of the Talmud. And all around, you'll have commentaries, glosses, and notes of all kinds discussing and referencing to other relevant topics or relevant questions about what's discussed here in the Talmud. So we're going to be reading right over here where the Talmud actually tells us the understanding of this part of the Megillah. So, but don't worry, it's all in Hebrew and Aramaic. I'm going to read that and actually read that in English. So the Talmud asks our question. The Talmud really wants to know, why is it so important for us to know that Achar Advarim Ha'ela, after this all happened, after Mordechai saved the king from the assassination attempt, that is when Haman was promoted by the king. Well, the Talmud says, Achar Advarim Ha'ela, after what? Amar Rava, one of the famous sages of the Talmud, says, Achar Shabara Kadosh Baruch Hu Refuah Lamaka, after God created the remedy for the Makkah, for the disease. The Amar Reish Lakish, for this an earlier sage, Reish Lakish had taught, Eila Kadosh Baruch Hu Makas Yisrael, God does not bring doesn't smite the Jewish people, doesn't bring a disease or a calamity or other misfortune to the people, Elohim Kain Borer Lahem Refuah Tchila, unless he would first create the cure. God only smites and brings the problem, brings the challenge, after having created the cure. Shenemar, as the verse states, Kirafi li Yisrael v'nigla oven Ephraim. I have healed the Jewish people, and then the sin, the iniquity, the trouble was revealed. In other words, we would usually expect and usually assume that first is the problem and then is the solution. After the problem emerges, we would look for a solution. After the Jewish people have encountered trouble, we'll try to solve that trouble. But the Talmud says no. That God says, I created the cure, and then I created the problem. I created the solution, and then the story began and the problem unfolded, but the solution is already there to be found. That is why the Megillah, the scroll of Esther, the scroll of the story of Purim, finds it so important for us to know that the promotion of Haman, the enemy of the Jewish people, to be number 2 in the Persian Empire happened right after, immediately following the story where Mordechai, the Jewish saved the king's life. Because that was the key. As the story unfolds, and Haman is plotting to annihilate the Jewish people, and actually wants to kill Mordechai early on, before the rest of the people, at that very moment, the king is reminded how Mordechai saved his life, and a reward is due to him, and the plot twists and goes the other way, ultimately leading, not getting into the whole story now, to Haman's downfall and the salvation of the Jewish people, which we celebrate to this very day. So, first, God created the cure. First, God provided the solution. First, Mordechai had the opportunity to save the king's life, and the king was in his debt. And only then was Haman promoted, and only then did the plot of extermination of the Jewish people begin, but the solution was already in place. The key was already there. The cure was there before the disease. Well, this would quite directly answer our question, our original question, where we wanted to know, is there a cure for coronavirus? Is there a cure to be found? Everyone's looking for it. Is there something to be found? Is there an expectation to actually find the cure? Well, the Talmud says before God brought the disease, before a new virus, or for that matter, a new bacteria, or any new challenge could emerge, the cure was already there. The potential for the cure was already present, and only afterwards did the disease emerge, and remains up to us to find that potential. So this seems to put it quite clearly in front of us that yes, there is a cure for this disease that's taken the world by storm. There is a solution, and there is a cure that can be found, as the Talmud promises, before the disease even unfolded. Now we just have to go find it. But of course, nothing can be that simple when it comes to Talmudic discussion. Because thinking about this, it occurred to me that it's possible to argue maybe a little differently. Who said a cure means a cure? Who said refuah, literally translated as a cure, actually means, or we expect, some kind of drug or some other solution to heal the disease? Perhaps the cure means a solution to the problem overall. In other words, God saved the Jewish people. That wasn't a drug that healed them. That was saving them from the problem that faced them. Perhaps one can argue that yes, the cure, the solution exists before the problem, but maybe the cure is a vaccine. Maybe the solution is avoiding the spread of the disease. Well, yes, it would be possible to make that argument. It would be possible to say, God gave us the key, God gave us the solution, but that solution can take on so many different forms. But I would still argue that in reading the Talmud as it is, and in its basic understanding and basic definition, cure for the disease would mean to actually be able to heal someone. It wouldn't be enough to say that there's a vaccine, we can prevent this from spreading, or we have some other solution of that nature, because then somebody who already has the disease has no cure. The Talmud is telling us that God says, first I created the cure, and then I created the disease. First I created the solution, and then I created the problem, which in its literal sense and most direct sense would mean that yes, a cure is out there. Let us all go and try to find it. But what really I think is most relevant for all of us, since most of us, at least, are not scientists or other types of leaders that might be leading an effort to find a cure, most of us are really going about our lives. What's the message for us? What's really relevant to us in this knowledge that there is a cure? And what's really relevant for us in this understanding that God creates the cure, God creates the solution before the problem. God provides healing before providing the disease. Well, let's think about that for a moment. What does that really mean? That really underscores when we say that God created the cure before the disease even began. That really underscores that God is not here to give us challenges. And the Torah and the world we live in are not here to give us a hard time. Some people want to know, is this COVID-19 coming on the scene as a punishment? What have we done wrong? Some people want to know, why do we have to suffer? But God isn't here to have us suffer. When God has a purpose for everything that happened, that it is always a positive purpose, always a positive goal and achievement, always growth, always an advancement, always something better that can come about through whatever challenge we might be going through. So God says, I am embarking on this program, I'm embarking on this journey of providing for the people this goal, this goodness, this cure, this betterness. Along the way, we need to have the challenge that leads us in that direction. So it's not that there was a challenge and there's a problem and something terrible happened and we're here to solve it and hopefully emerge from it. It's really the other way around. God's objective all along is to give us something good, something great, something greater. And the challenge was created to lead us in that direction. The healing, the cure, the solution came before the problem. That was the original goal. The problem is only there to help us get to that solution. So when we look at challenges in life, when we look at problems that might come our way, and they should never, but when we look at something difficult that comes up, there would be two ways to approach that. The conventional way would be to say, yes, this is a problem. Yes, this is a challenge. This is really hitting me hard, and hopefully try to emerge from it. But the Jewish way the Talmud is teaching us is to understand God is here to give me something good. God is here to provide something greater. God is here to raise me up higher, to better, to advance, to achieve greater and more. And this challenge is just the road to get there. Some of that we could see right in front of us with the coronavirus and everything that's going on. We're seeing a lot of goodness. We're seeing a lot of corporations and individuals helping others, providing things for free, trying to make things happen. And we're seeing people come closer together as much as the circumstances allow it. And perhaps we should all think that if God brought this, and as God brings every challenge for something greater, for an advancement, for an improvement, maybe it's a time that we can use for that. If we're off from work, maybe we can study Torah. If we're stuck at home a lot more, maybe we should spend quality time with the people we love in our lives. We should always be looking for the positive and that good goal, which was the purpose why God brought us the challenge to begin with, the disease, the cure that came before the disease, and the disease and the challenge is only the road to get there. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Tomorrow, again on the same Facebook page and same YouTube channel, please join us tomorrow at 8 o'clock for a discussion of the individual versus the community in Torah, in the Torah perspective. What is the Torah's view on individualism versus the community? When does the public good override, and when does the individual right override? We're seeing a lot of that going on now, where individual people have to accept restrictions for benefit of others, for benefit of the community, for benefit of society. How do we weigh that? What's the Torah's view on balancing individual and community? And then again, we will discuss that tomorrow evening right here at 8 o'clock. Thank you.